evening, everyone, and welcome to the launch of Triumph by Monster.com. I'm Vidya, and I take care of talent development for Quest Corp, and I'm going to be your host for the evening. Now, as you are aware, Triumph is an important milestone for Monster.com, as this addresses one of society's most pressing needs, that is to make people feel welcome and included, and to make people feel at home in our corporate world. This event is powered by Monster.com, and as you all are aware, Monster is a leading online and career recruitment resource with cutting-edge technology, providing relevant profiles to employees, relevant jobs to job seekers across the country, verticals, experience levels, and geographies. For more than 20 years now, we've been delivering the best recruitment solutions to enhance lives, businesses, and communities around the world. Monster India, now a part of Quest, has over 4 lakh jobs, 75 million job seekers, 40,000 recruiters, and is the leading job portal in India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. At Monster, we are truly committed to building a more diverse and inclusive environment for everyone. And in keeping in line with this philosophy, Triumph has been launched in collaboration with a few of the best companies known for diversity and inclusion at the workplace. And of course, we would like to thank our special sponsors for the event, Microsoft, Chubb, and BNY Mellon. Now, let us have a quick look at what Triumph is. Triumph is an important initiative aimed at enhancing diversity and inclusion at workplaces through 3 key events. One is Techno Diva, and I'm sure a few of you already know about this. You've already started participating as well. Techno Diva is a hackathon exclusively meant for women. And this event began on June 29th and will go on till July 18th. So in case you haven't registered for this event and you're interested, please do so. The second one is Connectathon, a virtual career fair hosting over 15,000 jobs from top companies in all India locations. The third one, that is this very event we are all in, is called Conc-live. And this is a platform through which we aim to promote the concept of diversity and inclusion. And we plan to do this through several online sessions, panel discussions, and conversations by eminent industry leaders. Now, Triumph is a virtual platform for candidates to be inspired, compete, and get their dream jobs. And by the end of this event, we hope that we achieve these 3 things. That is, candidates get inspired, candidates compete, and candidates get their dream jobs. Now, through this week, every evening, we have an interesting lineup of events comprising panel discussions, addresses, Q&A sessions with experts from across various fields. Next up in this session, we have Sekhar Garisa, CEO of Monster, APAC ME, have a conversation with Irina Ghose, Executive Director of Microsoft Cloud Solutions. Let me introduce Irina Ghose to all of you. As the leader of Microsoft Cloud Solutions in India, Irina is responsible for empowering cloud adoption and digital transformation by engaging with customers and partners to envision and architect their digital growth strategy. Irina leads a team of cloud specialists and technical evangelists with diverse capabilities across Microsoft's 5 solution areas. And Irina has been a Microsoft veteran for nearly 2 decades, and she has held a variety of strategy and sales leadership roles across our enterprise and education segments. And in this capacity, Irina joins us today to have a conversation with our own CEO, Sekhar Garisa. Welcome, Sekhar and Irina.
Thank you, Vidya.
A very good evening to everybody. Pleasure to be here with you, Sekhar, and thank you so much to the Monster India team for inviting me. I was just listening to the previous conversation as well. It was very, very energizing. Thank you so much.
Hi, Irina. Good evening, and so good to see you again. A small disclosure before we start conversation to the audience that Irina and I were colleagues not too long ago, maybe a couple of years back. We were working together. So always a pleasure to speak to you, Irina. Thank you for taking time out.
It's a complete pleasure, and really happy to be here with you, Sekhar. And thanks a lot for inviting me for this event. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you, to be
Lovely.
with all of you.
Before we start, I also want to take a minute to thank Microsoft for being part of the event. Having been at Microsoft just a couple of years back, I do know that this is a cause that Microsoft completely embodies in letter and spirit. So for me, it was very important that someone like Microsoft comes in and is a partner in the event like this. So thanks to Microsoft team as well. And we've had a couple of sessions during the evening, Irina, and we spoke a lot about diversity and inclusion. And we also touched upon the point that, a lot of times we talk about D&I in the concept, in the construct of hiring, but we often forget how important it is to create an environment for an inclusive workforce. And that more often than not is a bigger challenge to solve for than just to hire people from diverse backgrounds. And since you've been at Microsoft for a couple of decades now across roles, from a new joinee to an executive leadership role with an Indian organization now. How do you see, what do you think are the key factors that every organization has to keep in mind to create an atmosphere and enable this kind of inclusive workforce? What are the best practices that you've seen in your own long career?
Sure. So when I say this, I also want to put in context as to, say, Microsoft's journey itself. 2 decades earlier when I joined, it was a company which was into a certain set of products, essentially. And we were known for what we did in, say, Office and Windows.
Yep.
Post a certain period of time, we moved across to the server scenarios, then moving across to solutions. And then we moved across to cloud. So when we made this journey, what was happening is that we had to change the culture of the entire organization to learn things differently, to learn things new. And in my mind, the entire journey of diversity and inclusion in many, many facets came very, very true in this itself. Say, for example, diversity panning across to having people who are early in career, internal versus external talent. And how do we kind of have all these things made real homogeneously across the entire organization? Because that's the critical part. It's not just how you do it at a point of time, but how do you do it for everybody?
Yep.
So frankly, I just feel that the culture that we have is towards putting a few pillars. So one, we ensure that we keep on transforming the culture with the need of the time. The second, we also want to ensure that we are empowering our own people to lift that culture, which is by having, say, equitable opportunities and ensuring that we create a very inclusive way that every voice is heard. The third, we also try to ensure that when we talk about a diverse culture, it's essentially expanding our reach to various sections of population which are diverse in nature. And finally, it's also towards delighting our own customer with this entire diverse led culture. And we break this again in these 4 pillars to say how do senior leaders embody this? How do people managers live through this? And how do people make itself very real? So for example, the senior leaders, they should model this in their day-to-day way of working. The managers should coach their teams and create that inclusive culture. And the people who are the employees, they should literally say do things which they want by being a part of these employee resource groups, bringing in their own referrals to be of to actually expand the footprint of diversity. And finally, giving a lot of inputs to say even the product groups and various others as to what makes sense for an inclusive technology-led way itself. So I would say it's an end-to-end way of keeping this culture, the diversity element, and building up for the future, Sekhar.
Yeah, and as a lead question to you, it would be interesting to know in your long journey, how you've seen this evolve over a period of time. I'm sure the situation was very different, like you said, 20 years back, not just from what Microsoft used to sell, but I'm sure even in terms of the internal processes and the maturity around bringing in an inclusive workforce, right? So how did you see this evolve over a period of time, and where you are currently at Microsoft? And I know there's a lot of research and attention that Microsoft pays to it. So it would be good for the audience to take out maybe 2 or 3 best practices that Microsoft uses that all of us can adopt in our own workplaces.
Sure. So I think a few things that we do very, very intentionally is that for everybody, the managers and upwards for every leader, D&I is a part of what we call our core priority. So when we actually see as to how the leader is showing up, how the manager is showing up, It's also towards saying that, I mean, what did I do as being a DNI proponent? And a DNI proponent is not just being a great culture talent or a diverse talent for my own team, but how did I contribute to the entire company's overall way of taking it across? Similarly, for, say, an employee, how do they take the spirit through, say, allyship? Or how did they kind of bring across a much larger diverse culture here? So I would say that the first thing is towards really making it a part of everybody's priority and intentionally seeing that are we being honest and are we being intrinsically saying at every point of time that this is what we'll be going in for the top. The second thing we also do is that we manage our progress on this periodically over a period of time, so that it isn't something that it's a seasonal need, right? It has to increasingly become a part of the core way that we are bringing this front, right, and center for everybody who's seeing it, right? So we have various ways in which the statistics, the various ways in which we kind of see as to how are we kind of doing the overall way of increasing diverse representation at the senior leadership level, at a managerial level, at the entry level. And a key part of this is also the fact about retention versus, if I may, the entry or the admission, right? At times, hiring is not such a difficult thing at the entry level. However, retention is such a critical thing because at various points of time, people in the mid manager fall off the work stream because of various reasons. If the career is not progressing in the right direction, or say family constraints, and that became so pronounced during the pandemic era, not getting the right opportunity. So I think a very, very core intentional thing is that how are we ensuring that we show the right career path, mentoring people, and ensuring that we really keep on growing the talent. Towards this, we also have a program such as a Springboard, wherein for women who've had to fall out of the work stream, we give them internship opportunities after the break and offer them internship first, and then also full-time opportunities to join at the end if they are successful. So I would say that these are some of the things, and we also partner very closely with our learning teams to ensure that DNI linked learning path is refreshed and followed every year, and people like really know that why is it important, and it's not just a learning which is led across by a classroom. It's experiential to say that how the entire organization, society, business, and everything kind of goes through a change overall.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that stands out for me from my experience at Microsoft is just the sheer number of times we talk about it, because we all realize oftentimes that everybody has the right intentions, most of us have, but at times our own understanding of this concept in a very nuanced way is a constraint. So I do remember the number of hours that we used to spend even at a leadership level, just in terms of updating ourselves on what is the best that we can do to foster this kind of environment. So that surely stands out from my own days at Microsoft. So I think that's something that Microsoft does really well and something that all of us can emulate.
Absolutely.
It lacks a bit, and I'm going to talk about something that I know you are very passionate about, and Microsoft is one of the loudest voice around there in terms of AI and responsible AI, and how we're using the power of artificial intelligence to drive the concept around DNI. How do organizations build it into their products, into their processes, into their culture? How is AI helping inculcate this aspect into organizations? And I'm sure I would love for you to also touch upon, how is AI helping people with disabilities in terms of, the most advanced product development capabilities that Microsoft is making available to developers. So it would be good to hear your take on that.
Absolutely. Let me actually break this into a few parts. Firstly, when we think about AI, we also have to remember that AI is all dependent on the base level data which goes in, right? So at this point of time, AI is really helping solve a lot of business problems, various kinds of challenges or opportunities, as you may, towards addressing things in a very, very agile and efficient, non-biased manner. But having said that, there are areas where AI can also throw up results which you will question. And I'll give you a very simple example, which might be relevant for you all. So there was one of our ISV partners with whom we had developed a solution, which was towards finding a right fitment for a job or a fitment for a person for different jobs. Now, there was a lot of tests which had been done to see that basis the historical data, what is the kind of fitment which can be there, or basis the person's profile, what could be the various ways this person can be suited across to job A, B, C, D, E. When this was actually put into play, the results were not accurate because there was a familiarity bias in the data itself, and the women population were hardly present. So it throwed up an error of an 80-20. So we had to supervise the data to ensure that you're feeding the right inputs to correct them out. So there could be such biases. The other bias that I think we are all aware of is on financial inclusion, wherein women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are coming across from rural or other backgrounds, men or women, they kind of tend to be on the fringes because the data is not sufficient or adequate, right? So those are things which can happen and we need to be very mindful of. But now, where does AI kind of really play the other way around? Technology and assistive technology for different kinds of people with special needs or needing things which is panning across so many kind of things. There are now things which are built across into our base operating system, into the entire portfolio of our products. So people who are having any kind of a need for, say, vision, for, say, typing things, ensuring that things are coming across in a particular way. Now, with the overall advancements, we are able to do that very, very clearly. And even taking this across to a lot of our hardware that is kind of there for our consumers, we are building those things very, very intentionally in, so that different parts of the population who are, say, into gaming, who are, say, into doing various kinds of routine things, and even people who are, say, wanting to follow art, but they might have had an issue because of a physical disability, unable to do that. So things get coined across for them. So irrespective of whether you have any kind of a thing towards vision, towards sight, towards sound or anything, I would say that AI is becoming a leveler in many ways and opportunities getting opened.
That's so fantastic to hear. I think one of the best definitions of responsible AI would be if it were to eliminate biases like this and be more inclusive to anyone who might have a handicap on any one ability. So I think that's a fantastic direction that AI is pushing all of us towards. And I think even in the hiring process, what we are seeing is more and more companies are asking us to anonymize the profiles, so that when recruiters look at profiles and shortlist, their inherent biases don't come into play. So going forward, we do feel like almost every customer would just ask for the profile and not want to know the background of the person, which could open them to some biases. So we do see that coming in even in our area of work. And I think as you learn, and as you rightly pointed out, it is not always positive. You have to watch out for stuff that could go wrong, as well as AI starts learning from past data and starts replicating it, may not be the right thing to do. So I think that's brilliant, the way we're not just building these technologies, but watching out for where technology could actually accentuate the bias that's already there in terms of data. Just switching lanes to your own personal journey a bit, Irina. And I've always, when I was at Microsoft, I always obviously have seen you in a leadership position. And when I looked at the leadership group around us, you could almost always feel like it's very evenly represented. But I'm sure it was not the case all through over your 20 years at Microsoft. And as you went through this journey, I'm sure you would have had to fight some biases. You would have to kind of break some stereotypes, break a lot of glass ceilings over and over again. So would love to hear, how has it been for you in terms of your journey towards a leadership role, and what helped you in terms of personal and professional support groups, communities, how did that play out for you, and what is it that folks can learn from your own journey?
Sure. So I can possibly put it across in a few phases. When I joined Microsoft, the early part of the career, the thing which really worked for me is to take the largest ecosystem of my virtual team and getting them onboarded into where I am, what I want to do, and how I can lean on them. And more importantly, being vulnerable and asking for help and letting them lean in for me as well. Actually, in the initial part of my years at Microsoft, I had both my children after I entered Microsoft. And of course, I had to take a few breaks, but ensuring that my virtual team, my team, was really kind of standing in for me and ensuring that nothing went disrupted. Because you always have a guilt. Am I doing enough? And when I'm kind of not there, what am I missing out on? Is that something important? So having that peace that you're kind of really putting in your best. So I would say that the power of building that community or that network to be the force multiplier for you is a big, big thing, right? That's the first one. The second one I would say is that a lot of times biases come across when you want a particular role and people kind of really think, are you ready for it? So it's a proverbial question which comes across, maybe not now, maybe after some time when you prove yourself. So I think the one of the learnings that I had there was being very open to taking feedback and working on the feedback and going back and saying, this is the feedback, this is how I have developed myself, and then kind of asking for the opportunity again. So I would say that being vocal about what you want, but not getting dispirited if you do not get it. So ensure that one person knows that why he or she did not get it, and then working your path towards making it happen. And the third thing I would just say on a skill set part that I really learned, and which is very, very relevant in today's time, I changed my overall orientation from being in front of the customer as a account manager, business leader, to kind of taking across a technology led overall business. And I had to unlearn and learn a lot of things. So I would say that in today's age, you really have to keep an eye about what are the new things which are happening externally and where do you put your eye on. That's so important. So I always think of myself as a person with that map and the compass and kind of figuring out the route and keeping an end goal in mind, but taking the route which is kind of flexible and changing yourself going there. So these are the three broad things that I've done. But some of the overall learnings I would just say that which came to me is that it's also at times important to take certain non-conventional routes. Um, the learnings are immense because you get an open plate and an open canvas in which you can draw anything that you really want across to. So having that flexibility and not always being hard-coded on what you want to do, that's important. The second I would say is that not being very focused on the title of the role, but the canvas of the role. You make what the role has to deliver. So as long as you're kind of not worried about where you're boxed, but what you can do as a part of this, because that's what the world sees you as at any point of time.
Mhm.
And the third part is, I think a lot of us tend to think what we are good at and hence choose our options. It's also important to know the options and plunge yourself and take a bet and see that maybe it will work out for you in the longer run. Not negate any option because I've got my mind in terms of thinking that I am good at this, right? So maybe I don't know what I'm good at. So I don't know what I don't know, right? So those are some of the things that I kind of learned. And those are the things that which actually I got a lot of support from my peers, managers, mentors, everybody who kind of egged and goaded and coached me on the way too.
I think that's a very important piece of advice, especially in times like this where businesses are changing, roles are changing, the expectations and the dynamics of every role keeps changing. To be not fixated in what you want to do, but take that chance and go out and try out new roles, and eventually in the long run, that's what makes you a well-rounded leader. I think that's a very good advice. And Irina, I also know that you've got a very vibrant life outside of work, and I always wondered how you managed to do it. I've known you as someone who's super disciplined at work, and and kind of someone who made us look bad in the leadership group. You would be the first one to finish all training certifications, before anyone else. But I also know that you've been involved very actively in a few initiatives outside of work, either through Sonder Connect or through My Little Bit. And my own personal experience about volunteering is it's part of it is about contributing, but a lot of it is also about what you learn and how you grow as a person yourself as you go through a volunteering experience. So two questions. One, would love for you to speak about the work that you do outside of work, since both of those are very closely related to the cause that we're talking about today. And also the second part of the question is, how do you manage to do all of this? And I also know you are a fitness freak, and I see that you keep running a half marathon for fun every week. So how do you manage your day, and how do you manage to put all of these priorities without any of the walls falling by?
Okay. I think the last part about the passion, I guess I run, you play, Shekhar. I know that you are a very ardent person on your playing over the weekends as well. I think whatever a person is passionate about, they find their zone in that. Coming to the other question about what I do as a part of Sonder Connect and My Little Bit. So two diverse things actually. And My Little Bit is a journey that I started more than 10 years back. And that was something in which I was very passionate about doing something for the society, for girls in particular, and underprivileged girls. So I started this with a computer lab, say for girls who were in the government schools, and put up the entire digital literacy program, starting to teaching them Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And then I started this in one school. And then I realized that over a period of time, the girls were dropping out of maths and science because those were becoming very difficult. So we started special classes for them. We started telling them who the role models could be and why they should be yearning for that. Then we realized that being in that socioeconomic strata, they were not getting the right support for higher education. So we started doing charity runs for getting them scholarships for higher education. And after all this, we suddenly realized that they were not able to get into jobs. So they were, literally getting married and falling off the job streams, a lot of them. So we started putting a skilling program, which we ran across with Team Lees, to ensure that we are skilling them as a part of their overall journey, and we ensure that they are kind of getting placement for jobs. And I think the way I have kind of seen this overall thing grow is that through the digital literacy program, we've now put things across in 5 schools. We've now trained the children for special classes across 6 years, and it's always so heartening when you see 3 girls emerging as toppers. We've kind of, in the pandemic also, we've managed to give scholarships for girls. In the last year, we managed to place 4 girls also out there. So these things kind of went across a long way. And I guess the overall thing that I see is that everybody wants to do something. And at times you just have to figure out as to who are the people around you, whose life you can start with little differences. And my own thing was that go deep, make a difference for smaller set of people, and then scale it out. So now, of course, the operations have scaled, but this is how it started, with doing things for a smaller set of people. And that's why we call it My Little Bit. We just tell people to join this entire motion, do their little bits for whatever number of people, whatever cause they're interested in, for girls in particular. Now, on the Sonder Connect part, actually, it was something that I really wanted to learn as well, to the point you made, Shekhar. And I wanted to be a part of the startup ecosystem. So while I was driving the enterprise business in Microsoft, I really started going across with the Microsoft for startups at that point of time, and to understand how the business was going on. And I offered help towards how we can kind of help towards GTM for those organizations. That was really a learning moment. And then, along with a few friends who had founded Sonder Connect, I became a trustee there. And Sonder Connect has been a motion for female entrepreneurs. Like everybody here might be knowing, the access to venture funds, or the number of women entrepreneurs and their ability to break that ceiling to be the unicorn, is fraught with challenges. So we started this in 2016, and till date, we've actually mentored 6 batches and about 94 founders in areas ranging from space tech to sustainability and many more. And we mentor them on various things, raising funds, digital marketing, legal aspects, scale, networking, etc. And I think the pleasure comes across because when you see them going across and scaling things, it's really a very, very, very satisfying moment for us. So those are the things that I kind of keep doing.
Lovely, so wonderful to hear, and I do have to. I'm pretty inspired with the work that you're doing with My Little Bit, and do let us know both from a Monster perspective, Quest Group perspective. Would love to be part of it and see how we can help you scale this program. I'm sure the world needs a lot more of such activities. I know we're running out of time, Irina. Just one last question before I let you go. Again, drawing from the fact that you've had such a long and illustrious career, if you were to go back in time and advise maybe a 25-year-old Irina now getting into the workforce, what would be your advice to her, and how would you advise her to create the right kind of ecosystem and support groups around them? How do you advise her to plan their career and manage multiple priorities that they will have to manage over a period of time? So what would be your piece of advice to a 25-year-old Irina now?
I would say, first of all, don't take yourself too seriously and have fun in the initial part of your career. And that's the time when you're a sponge, you can soak in so much, so much. That also gives you the ability to be bold and take risks because you're really not worried about failures. So if you take risks, if you're being bold, whatever happens, it's a learning for you. You take that across and you go in that journey. So that is, I would say, something that I would have told myself. The second part is getting the entire family ecosystem, your spouse, your in-laws, your parents, everybody to be a part of your career journey. And I'm saying this from a perspective of being a woman, because everybody has a way to pitch in to make you successful. And I remember the way my transition was happening through various parts of my life. And there are times when I'll be running on a high lane. There are times when I'll be running on a medium lane or a slow lane. And that needs to be done with a cognizance of what, say, the company wants, as well as how I can say the entire thing along with the support of my family. The last part I would just say is that in today's world, especially for people who are early in career, is thinking about the brand that they are creating for themselves. A lot of times we do it, but it is not known to others. And in this era of the digital / social economy, frankly, the social media is a leveler. It doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It doesn't matter whether you are kind of having inhibitions, talking on stage, etc. But one skill I really feel, which I learned very late, honestly. And for me, that was like, I mean, oh my God, I have to get into this. So many people watching, etc. Those were initial fears. And I think that nobody is kind of wanting to pinpoint things across. People shouldn't take it seriously, but use this tool to really amplify themselves and kind of talk about who they are as a brand. And a lot of times people know people because of how they see them through their own search or whatever. So I would say that a little bit of a time to invest in that would also be nice.
Lovely. Very insightful and practical as always, Irina. And so lovely to have you here. Thank you for sharing your experience. And I'm sure everyone watching this session would have gone back with a lot of inspiration, but equally importantly, with a lot of hacks that they can start using in their own career. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the event. Thank you for being an inspiration to many young colleagues, not just in Microsoft, but overall. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sekhar. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Irina.
Thank you, Sekhar and Irina, for a wonderful conversation and a truly heartfelt conversation at that. And with that, we have come to the end of today's session. And we do have many more such sessions lined up for tomorrow. And we'd like all of you to join us. And like we said at the beginning, we want all of you to be inspired, compete healthily, and of course, go get your dream jobs. And on that note, we'll call it a day. See you all tomorrow. And thank you for joining us. Bye.